Claire is an Irish convict in the service of the British Colonial Force Station. She is made to sing for the gathering and to serve the soldiers. One evening, they celebrate the arrival of Captain Goodwin, who is there to evaluate the commander of the unit, Lieutenant Hawkins, for a potential promotion. After dinner, Hawkins asks her to sing for him. In desperate for a recommendation letter from him to finally be able to live a peaceful life with her husband Aidan and their infant daughter, she agrees to sing. When she asks him about the letter afterward, he reminds her that he has been kind enough. He then forces himself on her to establish the fact that he will continue to keep her around as a servant for as long as he wishes. Later at home, Aidan gets angry when he realizes what Claire must have endured. She calms him down and reminds him that they are helpless till they get the letter from Hawkins. He decides to ask for the letter the next day. However, he has no luck as Hawkins refuses yet again. Determined to obtain his wife's freedom, Aidan approaches Hawkins that evening, but they end up getting in a fight. Captain Goodwin witnesses the fight and informs Hawkins to forget the promotion. In an attempt to go over and apply to a higher post himself, Hawkins announces to his men Ruse and Iago that they will be leaving for Launceston the next day. The men then accompany Hawkins to Aidan's place that night to punish him for the missed promotion opportunity. Despite both Aidan and Claire deeply apologizing to Hawkins, he does not relent. In an act of cruelty, he forces Claire while Aidan is held back by Ruse and Iago. Hawkins later finishes Aidan and then offers Ruse to have a go at Claire as well. In her moment of shame, Claire is unable to save Bridget from the wrath of Hawkins, which causes Iago to swing the infant against the wall, instantly finishing her. Urged by Hawkins to finish Claire, as well, Iago then hits her on the head with his rifle. Claire wakes up the next morning to the nightmare of her life. After learning that Hawkins and his men had left for Launceston, she decides to hunt him down by herself. She sets off with the help of a native man named Billy to guide her across the wild, unexplored woods. Unwilling to work with each other initially because of the difference in their class, Billy agrees only for money, and Claire puts up with him to avoid getting lost elsewhere in the woods. Hawkins and his men, including Ruse, Iago, and 3 convict servants, following Billy's uncle, Charlie, as their guide through the woods. Coming upon the footprints of Hawkins' party the next morning, Billy informs Claire that they seem to be in a hurry since they aren't taking many breaks. Instead of following them, Billy suggests another harsher route by which they would be able to catch up to Hawkins. The same day, Claire sets down this new path without hesitation, but it proves to be hard to navigate through the thick trees with her horse. However, her sense of revenge urges her to go through all the trouble while she successfully evades a bunch of soldiers in the woods. Later, Ruse abducts a native woman named Lana and convinces Hawkins to let him make her as his slave. At the other party, against Billy's better understanding of the depth and current of the river, Claire insists that they cross the river without wasting any time. However, she loses hold of her horse in the deep water and begins to be driven down the river with the force of its current. Just as she is about to go under, Billy helps her out of the river. That night, they exchange stories of their tragic pasts. Billy tells her that Hawkins is the worst of the white guys around there and that he wants nothing to do with him. Instead, he just wishes to go north and find his remaining family. When he curses her along with the English, she insists on being an Irish and that she is also against them as they are responsible for the loss of her family. Their mutual hatred for the English gives them something common to work with. Meanwhile, Hawkins and Ruse take turns on their new slave. The next morning, a few members of Lana's tribe attempt to rescue her. They brutally attack one of the convicts, but Lana ends up losing her life after Hawkins shoots her in order to escape with Ruse, but an injured Iago left behind as he helplessly wanders around the woods. Following the trail of blood, he was leaving Claire and Billy are eventually successful in tracking him down. Initially relieved of the prospect of help, but soon recognizes Claire and attempts to get away despite his injuries slowing him down. Claire is unable to pull the trigger on time. At the other party, amongst the remaining convicts that Hawkins recruited for help through their journey, the determination of a little boy named Eddie captures his attention. He offers to teach him how to fire a pistol, which Eddie willingly agrees to. Meanwhile, Claire finally catches up to Iago, who desperately surrenders to save his life. This angers Claire more than ever. She takes a shot at his leg. When her weapon malfunctions in second shot, Iago stops apologizing and throws her off him. In the scuffle that happens between them, she manages to grab his knife and stab him repeatedly to let out her pain and anger. She then hits him with her weapon the same way that he had hit her and does not stop till he meets his end. Unaware of her motives and witnessing her cruelty, he walks away from her while she tries to convince him not to leave her alone in the woods. Seeing her helpless state, he realizes that she had to have a strong reason for having the courage to get out into the woods and seek those men. Rethinking his initial urge to leave, Billy goes back towards Claire's horse. On the other hand, Charlie directs Hawkins to a steep and difficult path in an attempt of revenge for Lana. He tells him that Lana's tribe must be looking for them, and hence going the tougher route might save them. This convinces Hawkins and the others to agree with Charlie Charlie's chosen path. When Billy realizes where Charlie directed Hawkins and the others, he tells Claire that it is a route that nobody has used it, and he assures her that both of them will be able to catch up to the other party by the next day if they go the usual way instead. As they stop for the night, Billy tells her that if he was in her place and lost his family the way she did, he would also do exactly what she did to Iago, and further intended to do with Hawkins despite the horrendous life she is experiencing. This rare bonding moment gives her a temporary relief. The night brings on another personal horror for Claire. She dreams initially of Aiden and Bridget, her baby, which then rapidly changes to Iago, where Billy wakes her up from her nightmare. In the morning, Billy offers to do a smoke ceremony on her to drive away her pain. She rejects the offer at first and gets back on the move instead, until later she lets Billy to do the ceremony. Meanwhile, Charlie gets Hawkins and the others on top of a hill and finally informs them that Launceston is far away from where they are. Desperate for promotion and unwilling to be lost in the woods without Charlie, Hawkins offers him more money to get them back on track. Irritated by the lack of respect for him, Charlie replies that he doesn't want his money. Then Ruse takes a shot at him right away, which angers Hawkins as they are now left without a guide to get them out of the woods. Later that night, he tells Ruse that since he got rid of Charlie, getting to lawn on time is now his responsibility. Giving Ruse's place to Eddie, Hawkins then hands over his pistol to him and also permits him to take a shot at Ruse if he ever see him moving wrong. The next morning, Billy and Claire come across Charlie's body on the hill. After performing a burial ceremony, Billy informs her that they can easily catch up to Hawkins since they have to be close. True to his word, they come across Hawkins in a while, but Claire is unable to take her shot, instead gets shot by Hawkins. As he makes to follow her, Billy asks her to hide and goes off to get the horse because she insists she cannot leave it behind since it is Aiden's last memory. Armed with Claire's weapon, when Billy gets back with a horse, he is stopped by Hawkins. Despite being mocked by Hawkins, Billy doesn't betray Claire or giving up her hiding place away. Understanding that Claire won't stand a chance without Billy anyway, Hawkins forces him to be their guide, puts Eddie on duty to monitor him. Claire follows them from a distance when they leave, but is forced to escape when Hawkins spots her. Back on the right way to Launceston by the next morning, Hawkins orders Eddie to shoot Billy in return for his own freedom. However, he isn't able to do so, and Billy grabs his chance to escape into the woods, leaving Eddie behind. Hawkins and Ruse get on their way. Eddie's continuously begging irritates Hawkins, and he shoots him. He then proceeds to Launceston with Ruse, the last remaining convict, and Aiden's horse. Meanwhile, Claire travels through the woods and miraculously reunites with Billy, and both of them follow the main path on their way to Launceston. After raiding a house for supplies and clothes, they come across a group of chained Aboriginal men. Claire pretends to have her weapon drawn at Billy to avoid suspicion. One of the chained men lets Billy know that the white folk have ended all of Billy's people. The prisoners then scream and shout about the unfair treatment their kind receives. Much to the shock and disappointment of Billy, all the prisoners end up getting shot in response. Claire and Billy proceed on their way and meet a helpful English couple who invites them home for a meal and place to sleep. Witnessing their keenness, Billy mourns the loss of his people. After a peaceful night's sleep, Claire and Billy finally reach Launceston. The next morning, unsuccessful at pawning off Hawkins' gifts to her at a store, she notices Billy looking at a horse tied up outside a house. Immediately recognizing Aiden's horse, Claire approaches the horse. Just then, Billy spots Hawkins and Ruse exiting the house. Ordering Ruse to hand both of them over to the police, Hawkins then warns Claire to never come looking for him again. Urging Billy to hide for his safety, Claire boldly walks over to his office and confronts Hawkins about his crimes in the presence of his colleagues and other higher authorities. Walking out, she and Billy then escape the town on her horse. Later that night, Billy finds his way back to town. Despite Claire's attempts, she isn't able to stop him from breaking into Hawkins' house and finishing him off with his spear. Ruse takes a shot at Billy, but that does not stop him from stabbing a spear into him and ending him as well. Claire and Billy then escape and eventually reach a peaceful beach and witness the rising sun as a free man and woman while singing the songs of their people.